Does he go to the cape store?
Steaming it just like Yord. You just don't like the Knights of Ren.
They're just like a sad little boy band.
Well, I want to see Yord going door to door on Coruscant selling Jedi popcorn like I did when I was a Boy Scout.
Is the Jedi popcorn any good, you think?
If Ki-Adi-Mundi is flavoring it, no. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Star Wars Explained Weekly Q&A. I'm Alex.
I'm Molly.
And it's raining outside, in case you can hear that. It's not too bad yet, but occasionally there's thunder and stuff.
It might get loud.
It's been insanely hot here in Georgia. It's been insanely hot everywhere, but we do need the rain, so hopefully it'll cool things down for a little bit.
Feels like the devil's butt crack.
Okay. Just sliding right into Georgia, that classic Georgia saying.
It's so hot that
How hot is it?
I knew you were going to do that. We've been having to get up like super, super early every day now to walk Hilo, and we're not really morning people, but I'm starting to become one. I'm like, oh, this is nice. I get up early, we walk Hilo, and then I get so much more done throughout the day.
I don't mind getting up earlier so much. It's like going for the walk first thing is hard on me. Like, I feel like I'm out of it until like halfway through.
I have to basically shake him out of bed.
I'm just a zombie walking my dog. Moaning, groaning, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Before we get into news and questions, a couple of quick announcements. First, we just have to send a shout out and a thank you to Colton Shoneke, who joined our Patreon at the Jedi Master level, which is very generous. Thank you, Colton. We also wanted to start talking about Mos Eisley Atlanta. That's going to be happening on August 1st, the Thursday of Dragon Con. We have been to 3 Mos Eisleys, I think, in different cities.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing time if you're like me and love punk, emo, pop punk style music. It's thrown by our friends over at Thank the Maker Pod, and we can't wait. So we just wanted to start spreading the word for anyone that's coming to Dragon Con. Come party at Mos Eisley. It's going to be at the Masquerade. I can't wait.
It's honestly so much fun, and Dragon Con is already kind of like the mecca of cosplay, right? And so the costumes that people come up with for Mos Eisley are amazing. They're like punk rock versions of Star Wars characters, and everyone brings a lightsaber, and just it's such a fun party. And the Masquerade is a really fun venue. We've actually been to 2 shows there in the past year.
To see Bayside and Story of the Year, who are part of Thank the Maker and throw the party.
It's close to the convention area, so, if you're already coming to Dragon Con and you need plans for Thursday night, this is gonna be one not to miss. And plus side, there are some stuff going on Thursday night, but the lines are usually insanely long, and it'll be midnight before you get into those parties. This one will be a little bit easier to get into, I think, than the official Dragon Con stuff.
I just love going to these parties. They're so much fun, and Dragon Con is already a party convention, so this is just the perfect way for me to kick off that weekend. Well, we're going to talk about mostly some Acolyte questions, but there's also a few news tidbits that have come out the past week or so that we haven't had a chance to discuss. First is a tiny little update from Charmin Obaid-Chinoy about the Rey movie. Really all she did was mention that, well, A, she's working on it and has met with a bunch of directors and writers and stuff, but she did specifically mention taking Rey on an adventure to a Jedi Academy.
The heart of it, for me, is Rey Skywalker, is Daisy Ridley and her story, and taking her on an adventure to a Jedi Academy and sort of creating a world that is a natural dovetail to the story that we've seen her go through the last 3 episodes.
That's fun. I mean, it's not really surprising.
Yeah. She didn't say that she was going to start her own necessarily. And, the story could still be very much up in the air. But yeah, the idea of taking Rey to a Jedi Academy is interesting. It could be an abandoned one,
right,
an old one where she's going to find a relic or going to just learn and find more Jedi texts. We don't know.
The way I interpret it is just taking her to a Jedi Academy. I do think it'll be her Jedi Academy. I kind of hope it is, just because I was someone that wanted to see Luke's Jedi Academy a little bit more in the sequel trilogy. Like, I read all about that in Legends, and I was like, oh, this will be fun to see on screen. And we just saw it in flames. So I would like to see, one that's actually doing well and thriving. I'm sure it'll have problems that need to be dealt with, hence the adventure.
Right.
But I'd like to see an active Jedi Academy. And 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker, I'm like, that's enough time, I think, to have something up and going.
Yeah. What I really want to see is like a Star Wars version of Abbott Elementary.
Yeah.
for little Jedi.
Yeah.
I think that would be amazing.
We've talked about that before, just like setting a sitcom, or not even that, but just a story in the Coruscant Jedi Temple during its heyday, whether it's High Republic or Dooku Jedi Lost has some really great storytelling about Dooku and Sifo Dyas sneaking around after hours in the dark and like breaking into the Boken collection and stuff.
Something kind of like the Harry Potter movies where, like, you know, kids are just getting up to shenanigans around the grounds of the temple would be kind of fun.
Yeah. I think that would be great to watch, like a series of books going from youngling up into graduation or knighthood or whatever.
Yeah. I want to see what finals week is like, what, you know, the hazing is like for the new kids.
I mean, yeah, that they have gotten into that a little bit. The book Padawan about Obi-Wan, he gets not so much hazed, but just teased by some of the other Jedi.
I want to see Anakin get teased about being the chosen one. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of fun storytelling to be had at a Jedi Academy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the little bit of movie news that popped up. Also, now in some TV news, we have basically learned someone let it slip that Ben Mendelsohn is probably going to be in Andor season 2.
Yeah, it was a director of one of the episodes for season 2 just said something about like, wow, it's amazing to get to work with such heavy hitters, and started listing names, and Ben Mendelsohn was one of the names that he listed. So hopefully that is true.
Again, not super surprising. A little more surprising than hearing that, yeah, Rey has a Jedi Academy. It's like, I was hoping she would. I was also hoping we might see some more Krennic, because I really liked him as a villain.
I want to see him get his cape.
Yeah.
Does he go to the cape store?
Steaming it just like Yord. I do think it's very funny that this is like the same way we found out that Saw Gerrera was going to be in Andor season 1, because I think Stellan Skarsgård was on a podcast or something, and he's like, wow, working with Forrest Whitaker was so much fun, and all the Star Wars nerds are like, all right, write that down.
It's so crazy because like Star Wars is not the only one, but like one of the only franchises that actors have to be so super careful about what they say, as far as like
pretty much
which actors are going to be in it. Yeah, Marvel, just because the fans know who plays who very well now. And, you know, if we hear Ben Mendelsohn's name pop up, we're like, yes, we're getting Krennic.
I'm just thinking of Mark Ruffalo now, because he leaked so many things. And like there's a clip of him and Don Cheadle, and they're talking about movies, and he's like, wait until you see Avengers 3, it's a bloodbath, and Don Cheadle just goes, dude. Like, what are you doing, man? Can't take you anywhere. But yeah, this is just like a fun little tease. Again, I'm not that surprised by it. I am delighted by it, because I just want to see what Ben Mendelsohn does with, like, give him a Stellan Skarsgård style monologue.
Right.
I'd love to see that.
And also, this could mean that, you know, if they think, oh, the word is out, I guess, about Ben Mendelsohn, maybe they'll put Krennic in some of the trailers and let him come along in the press tour and stuff like that. So it could lead to things like that.
It is interesting. Like, we don't even know when it's going to come back. I definitely don't think it's this year. It sounds like Skeleton Crew probably end of the year. And then Andor, that's really the only thing on the slate streaming-wise that we know about. I bet we're going to hear about a new animated series at some point, but as far as live action streaming up for Star Wars, I think we're going to get Andor in 2025, and I'm not sure what after that, because Mandalorian and Grogu is going to the big screen.
Yeah. Ahsoka season 2 sometime.
That's somewhere.
Somewhere sometime.
But they haven't started production on that yet, so I think a 2025 release is unlikely, unless they get started like real soon. But let's get into our Acolyte related questions for the Q&A this week. And if you haven't already noticed, we have put up a shrine to our fallen heroes.
We didn't have anything to represent Jecki. I was going to do Jecki makeup, and I totally forgot and was just on autopilot. So I went and got my Ristal Sant figure, and she is a half human, half Thelan. And she's got the little horns and the polka dots.
It's the closest thing we had.
That's all we got.
I was going to put a lightsaber in her hand, but her pose is just like jazz hands.
Yeah.
So
she's jazzed about being included.
But we have our little shrine. We have a steamer. And of course, our Yord Horde sticker. I'm still not quite over the loss of what Chimere or the Stranger or whoever we're calling him, what he did to Jecki and Yord.
Yeah. It was quite the shock.
A lot of our questions this week are about the Stranger, not surprisingly. And I do think that that's the point. They have named him very vaguely. He vaguely talked about what he is. He said the word Sith, but people aren't convinced. So that's what we're going to be talking about. The theory we've seen thrown around the most is if the Stranger could have some connection to the Knights of Ren. Is he a Sith at all? Is he just a Knight of Ren? What's going on there?
Yeah, this theory bugged me a lot at first because I just really didn't want those punks in anywhere near this story. I am just not a fan. Okay, like that's just me. If you are a fan of this theory, more power to you. I don't want to like crap on everyone who thinks this, so I want to make that clear.
Well, I mean, it seems like it's not so much about the evidence put forth as much as you just don't like the Knights of Ren.
They're just like a sad little boy band that is trying too hard.
Yeah, they're a bunch of tryhards, they're edgelords, and honestly, that's the biggest reason I don't want it to really be true either, is because I feel like this has been talked about, sold as a Sith story. Leslie Headland has talked about the Sith and wanting to tell a story from the Sith point of view in several interviews. So if they went from he's a Sith to like, no, actually, we were lying, he's a Knight of Ren, I'm like, that's a significant downgrade.
Well, I guess people are saying like he was the first. He was the CEO, you know, the creator of the Knights of Ren, which I guess that could mean, yeah, he was a Sith to begin with, and then he just became something new. So that could be the case. Again, I don't super love that idea. Like you said, Leslie, from the very beginning, has talked about this story being about the Sith. I kind of want it to stay that way. But today, I was reading the Wikipedia article for the Knights of Ren, and I was like, damn it, a lot of this stuff, you know, could line up, and I can't deny that.
So I think the evidence put forth is like the mask is kind of Knight of Ren-esque. His fighting style could be said to be similar. He's got the gauntlet kind of like Ren does.
Well, not just the gauntlet, like he's jacked.
Right.
Like him, he's got the same kind of like cowl plus the helmet, plus the gauntlet. So when I saw the picture of Ren, that's not the original Ren, right? Or is it?
I don't think so. So it's a little muddy about the Knights of Ren, but in the Crimson Reign comics, Kira approaches them and she's like, the Knights of Ren used to be something. Like, so, I mean, there's a little bit of, she was like, the Knights of Ren used to be scary and powerful, and look at you now. You kind of suck. Like, that's what she says to all of them, and they're like, easy, we could kill you, and she convinces them to fight for her and stuff. So we know that they're older than that group, and I think whoever leads them is just called Ren, and Kylo Ren wanted to add his own little flair on that.
Maybe because he was like, I don't really have a name, if by the end of this season he like introduces himself as Ren, we can all be like, okay, fine.
Yeah. So there is that bit of evidence that the Knights of Ren are older than the sequel trilogy. They're older than the original trilogy era. Very possible they could have popped up at this point and like made an enemy of the Sith. If Chimere was a Sith apprentice and decides to become an offshoot or something and start the Knights of Ren, I think that's possible. There is the fact that Kylo Ren's theme plays in the episode as he is approaching Osha and kind of taking care of her, really. That's the biggest thing to me that we have to look at and say, there is a direct link between at least the Acolyte and the music of the sequel trilogy, and why did they purposefully choose to include that motif?
Right. I guess my only issue with thinking of it that way is like, when I think of Kylo Ren / Ben Solo, the fact that he was the leader of the Knights of Ren is not the first thing I think of, and I don't love the idea of like automatically thinking of the Knights of Ren when we hear his theme music. You know, like there's so much more to his character than the fact that he had all these lackeys, you know?
Yeah, it could be that Chimere is showing some like sense of compassion for Osha, and Kylo Ren was conflicted and he was pulled to the light. I also think, you know, people are associating the theme with Chimere. I think it's possible the theme could be for Osha, because Ben Solo was a character that was manipulated and drawn to the dark side by Snoke. So we could be doing some foreshadowing of like, this guy is about to pull her to the dark side. So the musical theme could be more of a thematic thing than a character connection. But it's an interesting choice, and I hope we'll know why they put it in there by the end of the season. Could be that he's a Knight of Ren and decides to go that route. But right now, I think he's a Sith. I want him to be a Sith, I guess.
I do too.
But I have to admit that we have, like, they put out a character poster and a little bio, and the bio even says, like, some might refer to him as a Sith. And they aren't fully committing to calling him a Sith. But I do think that this is the point, that they're just trying to keep us guessing and keep us wondering and get us talking.
Another thing that I read on the Wikipedia page for the Knights of Ren was that they were known to be, you know, against rules. Like, they were known to be like, I don't want to follow the Jedi rules. I don't want to follow the Sith rules, which is very much like what Chimere was talking about in this episode.
Yeah, just kind of a Force anarchist of types.
Yeah, and then another part of the article mentions the Secrets of the Sith reference book, and there's a quote in there from Darth Sidious talking about the Knights of Ren and how they use the dark side but don't harness it to its full potential. And that I love that line just because it's like kind of a sick burn. He's like, they're fine, but they could be better, and they choose not to be.
Oh, yeah, like the Hidden Empire comics, Sidious just throws them under his power immediately. Like, no problem. He's like, you all work for me now.
Right.
So, I get the sense that this guy, Chimere, is strong, he's powerful. There is that, too, that I don't know that... I guess I'm thinking of the crappy version of the Knights of Ren, as Kira would say, like, you're not as strong as you used to be. So, yeah, maybe Chimere is strong enough to be like, I'm going to start a new thing. It does seem like a lot to do. There's only 3 episodes left. One of them is almost certainly going to be entirely flashback again. So, to talk about this show and to say, it's a Sith story, it's a Sith story, it's a Sith story, and also it's like a Knights of Ren origin story. Like, I don't know. I'm conflicted on it. I can see it being possible, but I feel like from a storytelling standpoint, it might be just a lot to do. Yeah.
Just the way the Knights of Ren have kind of been handled off and on so far. They were like there and then not really there. And then, oh, they were there again. And then they were gone. And then they are in a comic. And like, it's like they're trying to it feels like Lucasfilm is trying to decide, are we going to go full speed ahead and like create a backstory for these guys, or are they just going to like pop up whenever it could be feasible?
Yeah, I mean, they've been so comic heavy that part of me thinks that they had no plans to tell their story in live action at all. But then again, Charles Soule usually does a really great job at foreshadowing future projects. A lot of time it's his own projects or like the High Republic or something. But it's possible that he knew what was coming down the line as he was writing The Hidden Empire. And he's like, I'm going to sneak in this line of Kira saying that, wow, the Knights of Ren really used to be something, huh?
Are you ready for like a crazy theory that I thought of while reading the Knights of Ren Wikipedia page?
I'm not ready.
So part of the initiation for the Knights of Ren is to kill someone. And they want it to be someone very close, like a family member or something similar to close to a family member. What if Chimere had a twin and killed them?
Or if he is the first Knight of Ren, like there's potential for that, but I could also see him saying like, Osha, if you want to follow me and become a Knight of Ren,
kill your sister.
You gotta kill May.
Yeah. What if he comes up with that rule? Either he's already done it, or like you said, he gets Osha to kill May, or he's related to Soul somehow and he wants to kill him. I don't think he wants to necessarily kill him. We've talked about that a lot. But that was just a really wild theory that came to my mind.
Yeah. We're talking a lot about it, and I do see, storytelling potential if this is the way they go. I'm not going to be upset if they decide to go this way at all, but it's just not what I'm seeing right now. Like everything that Chimere said to the Jedi about the Sith or about what he wants, I'm like, that feels very Sith to me. Not just dark side, but Sith. Because
he mentions power specifically. Like, I want to wield my power how I choose to, and I don't want to follow anyone's rules. I feel like the Knights of Ren aren't so much about gaining power.
They're more agents of chaos. Like, I'm thinking of the Rise of Kylo Ren comics. They say something like, let's just go find something to blow up. Like, they just want to go...
They're just punks.
Yeah, they're like a biker gang, which I think they are even described that way in, or shown that way in one of the Lego specials, where Ben Solo falls in with the wrong crowd, and they're like, yeah, come on with us, man, and like Christian Slater voiced Ren, and it was like the Lost Boys.
Okay, now I need Grease, but with the Knights of Ren and the Handmaidens. Or something like that.
The Handmaidens or the Night Sisters or something.
Yeah, we got the Pink Ladies and the T-Birds.
I can see the possibilities there. I can't deny the Kylo Ren theme, but I'm not willing to just definitely say that's what it means. He's a Knight of Ren and not a Sith. But part of that's just my own bias of like, I really just want him to be a Sith.
Yeah.
I want him to be the big bad or the apprentice to the big bad.
Apprentice to the big bad.
I do think that that's still likely, that he is the apprentice and he's got a master. Which again, like that reminds me of the interview that Leslie Headland did with Dave Filoni where they were talking to each other. And she kept talking about the Sith and what an acolyte is, and mentioned like Asajj Ventress was the acolyte to Dooku. And it's basically the person that the Sith apprentice wants to help kill the master.
Yeah.
So I'm just basing it more on what has been said about the show, but I do want to know why they used that theme.
Well, it's not the first time they've used other characters' musical themes to like hint at stuff. We brought up the theme that played, like the opera house music that plays when we see Snoke. And everyone thought, oh my God, Plagueis.
Right.
And it was just like a more of a Palpatine hint or just maybe a general spooky dark side
It's funny,
thing.
When the movie came out, I think it was just spooky dark side music. John Williams was like, I'll use that. And then it did turn out to be a Palpatine thing, which I don't think that Palpatine was always going to be the big bad. But maybe John Williams was like, just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah. I don't think they planned that far ahead.
So, it wouldn't be the first time something like that has happened, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Moving on to theory number 2, could Chimere have a connection back to the witches of Bryndock? A lot of people ask this, and I wanted to include it because you had that thought.
I've had so many thoughts of how Chimere could have been connected to the witches. Like, I was thinking, so these are just like random theories. I don't have a lot of information to back them up, but I was like, what if he is a child of one of the witches and like the witch had a relationship with someone in their previous town and the coven was like, you can't keep him, you know, we're a
No boys allowed.
we're a matriarchy, no boys allowed. And so maybe the witch had to abandon their son, or maybe the witches were sacrificing children in the past town and that's why they didn't have any kids around. And like, whatever it is, I do think there's something to connect Soul to maybe seeing Chimere amongst the coven at some point, because of that line that Chimere and Soul have together of like, you don't recognize me,
Right.
which they did see each other at the apothecary, but for some reason that line keeps ringing in my head like it means something else.
It was delivered with that intensity, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And when he said it, you don't recognize me, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Like, they've met before. And then I went, oh, yeah, 2 episodes ago.
Right.
So I know that they've met and everything, but just the way he said it made me think that there might be more history there. I don't know.
Or Soul met his twin.
Oh.
I keep going back to more twins.
Everyone's a twin. Yeah, I could see something connecting him to the witches. I mean, he had to meet May somehow. Osha has the line about, I've seen my mother do something similar, take over a Jedi's mind. That could just be that she's like, I've seen the dark side at work against a Jedi before. Or it could mean, yeah, there is a direct link. I kind of think that it was just talking to Yord, kind of helping him through not understanding what was happening, because he's just like, none of these people have encountered a Sith, much less like maybe not even a dark side user in a long time. Like, This is just a time of peace for the Jedi. They've probably, especially this group, never been in any combat like this. So Yord is just like reeling and doesn't know what's happening, and they're trying to figure it out together. So I don't necessarily think it means that he was a part of the coven or learned magic from Mother Anastasia, but you know, maybe he did. Maybe Mother Coral is his master. Like, people keep wanting to throw her into the mix, so maybe Mother Coral became a Sith, taught him some of the witch's magic and how to get into someone's head.
Yeah. Well, I keep thinking that he knows what happened.
Oh, he definitely knows what happened.
So,
right.
Would that mean that he was there at some point, or is he just taking what information he's learned and twisting it?
I think that it's reasonable for him to have learned from May. Or maybe he found out, hey, something weird happened to this coven, and he tracked down this lone survivor. But yeah, we don't know how he met May, but I kind of figure he found this sad, lost, angry girl and was like, what did the Jedi do to you? And she filled him in. Maybe he approached her as Chimere and then approached her later as the stranger.
Yeah.
And was like, you want to get some revenge? So
I do kind of like the idea of Mother Coral being his master, because she was definitely there. And
called the Jedi a bunch of deranged monks.
And she definitely has reason to, not like the Jedi and want to get maybe revenge for what happened.
Yeah. That's the most, I just like talking myself through it, but that's the most I've thought that Mother Coral might be involved. We'll know more after the flashback episode, I think. Maybe episode 6 ends with a reveal that she's still around, and then we'll go and flashback to episode 7, because there's going to be something. We've assumed that episode 7 is the next flashback episode. Same director, at least. Yeah. I think same writers. So maybe there's something in 6 that leads us back into the past.
That would make the most sense to me, because giving us what actually happened in the penultimate episode would make the finale just, I feel like, bonkers crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we've all been waiting to see. I still think that is what this whole series hinges on, is whether or not that is satisfying. The clips that we know we've seen from the trailers and stuff, I'm like, looks pretty sick. But that's more the action of it all. What the Jedi did is the important thing, and I really hope it's satisfying and that it lands and it feels big enough.
Yeah. I think it will. Honestly, like, this show has been, I think, my favorite Star Wars live action streaming show so far. And not only that, it's been my favorite to talk about because it's so wild. I've never come up with this many theories for any other show.
I told this story on the live stream we did, but Molly came running into my office after working out, just like out of breath, and told me a bunch of theories. And it sounded like you were out of breath because you'd been thinking so hard, but I know you were just like working out on the treadmill and stuff.
It was a little bit of both, I think.
you're like, hold on, what if Chimere is like the son of a...
And today I was like, the mods, they're like representative of May or Chimere, because May went right for the lightsabers in all of her fights, and they were like, it went right for the lightsaber, and it's attracted to the light. May is attracted to the light side. I feel like their switcheroo thing shows that. I don't know. I'm getting weird with the theories about this show, which tells me I'm really enjoying it.
Right. And that's what I love seeing, is just people engaging with it, whatever the story. Like, even if you're not into it and you don't want to engage, that's fine. But stuff like this, or stuff like Andor, when I'm really sitting down to write through the episode, and man, when Chimere started talking, like, I just couldn't stop writing about how, like, God, he's so full of crap. Like, he's saying things that kind of seem like, I can see where you're coming from, but the freedom to wield my power and to just, like, be who I am. But it's like, but what you want to do is kill and spread suffering and subjugate.
Right.
And, like, that's not the same as the witches, dude. It's just not.
That's you being destructive. The witches just wanted to live. And we still don't know everything about the witches either. So it's like, to us, what we've learned so far, yeah, the witches were just trying to live their lives peacefully on their little mountain.
Yeah.
And we don't know if that is 100% the case yet. So just the way they've set the show up as a mystery, and it really lends to just so many crazy theory crafting sessions after each episode that I feel like no other show in Star Wars has done.
Well, then let's move on to another theory. Could Chimere have been a member of the Lost? So people more know this as the Lost 20. That's what it's called after Dooku left, and there were 20 full Jedi Masters that left to the Jedi Order. Basically, could Chimere have been a Jedi before? I definitely don't think he's a member of the Lost, because, you know, those are, like I said, Jedi Masters who left the Order peacefully, and they are, like, honored in the archives with statues and stuff. At this point, there wouldn't even be 20 of them. And I assume he would have been one of the more recent people to leave. So I think he'd be a recognizable figure for the Jedi. I think Sol would have been like, Master Chimere, like, what are you doing here? He would have noticed him when they met in the apothecary.
Right. Yeah, he does not strike me as someone who made it very far in their Jedi training. He could have been a Padawan, maybe, and that's why he's like, you don't recognize me, Master Sol?
Just like a little Damien evil youngling child, and they're like, send him back. We don't want him.
Yeah, he doesn't really strike me as someone who did any sort of like official Jedi training at the temple.
I feel the same way. I do not think he was a former Jedi. Obviously, we don't know his past, but he seems so anti-Jedi, which could be resentment, but I think it's just whatever his master taught him. His master probably recognized strength in the dark side and was like, I'm going to take you. I'm going to make you worse.
Yeah.
But Jedi, probably not. We have one more question, but before we move on, I just want to talk about the whole, like, Sith thing a little more, because he did word it very strangely and vaguely, like, Jedi like you might call me a Sith. And, yeah, why not just say I'm a Sith? I do think they're trying to leave wiggle room for theory crafting and all. But also, I think that he said it that way, not necessarily to be confusing for the Jedi or for the audience, but in case of the Jedi, they might not even remember the word. Like, I think someone like Sol would. I would hope they would teach about the Sith in Jedi history class.
Yeah.
But I think Kymir was kind of reintroducing the Sith to the Jedi.
I agree. I feel like just the way he said it was just, it was more about the jab and not like, am I a Sith? Am I not a Sith? I don't know. It felt like to me, you know, if who he was talking to was not a Jedi and he said that, they might be like, a what? So yeah, the Jedi are the ones that would know that name. So to Jedi like you, I might be a Sith.
Right. And like none of them, or at least Yord and Osha, they're like, what is he? And Jeki too, like, what is that? They don't immediately go, oh my gosh, it's a Sith.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they learned their galactic history of war. The Sith Wars lasted for a really long time. So
right, you would think Yord would just bust out a monologue about history.
That is interesting that he's like, well, pulls out a textbook, just so happen to have this. So that is interesting. That I think it's more that, you know, they haven't ever seen one. You'd think that the red lightsaber would set off some alarm bells, but what if the Jedi aren't putting that in their curriculum? What maybe
if they
not? It's been 900 years.
Yeah, what if, you know, what if they're like, do we really need to teach them about them anymore? They're not a threat, you know, they've been gone forever.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a real world example. Like, I don't even know what was going on 900 years ago in our world. I know what.
Let's not bring up real history because we don't want to show our true colors of how dumb we are.
Right. No, I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to say is that people forget their history lessons. I took world history and I should know what happened 900 years ago. But if some invader from 9 centuries ago walked into our house and they were like, I'm this, I'd be like, okay, I mean, get out, please. But
I took a AP history class and took the test and everything. I think I did well, but I don't remember anything. I know about the pyramids. They were cool.
That was all 20 years ago, not the pyramids. Yeah, I don't really remember a whole lot from high school. So, yeah, like, I do think it's possible that after 9 centuries, and they're like, maybe, do we really need to keep actively teaching Sith history? I don't know, maybe not. So,
I mean, if it even got its own history class, it's probably just part of general history, and it's like one day where they're like, yeah, they were the Sith, they did this, it was terrible, moving on.
It's one of those things where outside of the universe, we're like, what are you talking? We know all about the Sith, and they were a problem for thousands and thousands of years, but that doesn't mean that's how the classes went in the Jedi Temple. I don't know.
Also, what if the Jedi aren't actively teaching anyone about the Sith because they're like, we don't want to convince anyone to switch sides?
Yeah.
Maybe we just don't do that.
This is why we need a Jedi Temple like book series of let's see what the education system looks like in the Jedi Temple.
What classes are these kids failing? What classes are fun?
Show me what you're teaching. What's in the curriculum?
What's the reading list? Oh, do you think they had book fairs?
Aww.
Did they collect little box tops?
I want to see Yord going door to door on Coruscant selling Jedi popcorn like I did when I was a Boy Scout.
Is the Jedi popcorn any good, you think?
If Ki-Adi-Mundi is flavoring it, no.
Plain, dry, unsalted popcorn.
Unbutter that popcorn. He's licking every kernel.
Ew.
For our last question, Vaxsteel asks if the Acolyte is going to make the Jedi too gray instead of undeniably the good guys. Because right now, we are at this point where we don't know what they did on Bryndock. It's probably kind of bad. They didn't come off great in episode 3. And then we've had a lot of discussion about the way Chimere talks to them. And I do think that some people could see that and interpret it as, the villain's got a point, which it's kind of giving The Last Jedi Kylo Ren energy, where he said, let the past die, kill it if you have to. And people are like, that's the theme of the movie. And it is not. It's like they turned it off right after that.
Yeah.
But I think that they actually did a good job in the episode of showing that Sith is Sith, Chimere. I think they actually did a good job in the show of showing that Chimere is the bad guy and the Sith are bad.
Yeah.
He might be saying things that sound kind of reasonable, but they don't hold up to much scrutiny.
Yeah, it's just something that we can't decide quite yet, Like, we still don't know what it was that Saul did, what he's hiding. The term good guys for describing the Jedi is kind of silly to me. I feel like
heroes.
Well, they're guys who do good.
Right.
If we're gonna say we're gonna say good guys, they're just people who do good and follow good and inspire good. But this story isn't about how bad can we make the Jedi look. Mm-hmm. It's about giving us the opportunity to see Jedi who are fallible, mm-hmm. who make mistakes, and then what happens afterwards. What are they going to do when they make a mistake, when and if, because there will be mistakes to be made. What are they going to do after that to make up for it?
I mean, that's the message of The Last Jedi as well.
Yeah.
That, like, everyone makes mistakes. Every hero, every good person isn't always a good person. A test of courage. You brought it up in the live stream, but Vernestra's first starring role in a High Republic book is very much about a Padawan who is struggling with the dark side and gives into it, and Vernestra pulls him back and says, and he's like, I'm gonna get kicked out of the order, and she's like, being a Jedi doesn't mean you can't have bad days. Mm-hmm. Like, some days you are going to give into your anger and your fear and your rage. Just don't let it define you.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Jedi are going to make mistakes, but the point is that they're always trying to do good. Torben said, we thought we were doing the right thing. So I really hope that what we see is a bunch of Jedi trying to do the right thing, making a grave mistake, and then deciding to cover it up, which is bad. I think that'll be the bigger sin, is that they're like, let's hide this shame.
Yeah.
But I hope that it shows them being good, at least as much as they thought that they were going to be.
Even Yoda has a whole episode in the Clone Wars about his dark side. Like, he has to, like, literally fight basically a dark side version of himself. And that whole episode is about him learning that you don't just conquer your darkness. You have to live with it every single day. And you have to remember that it's always there, and it's always going to try to creep in and make itself comfortable and take over. And you gotta just, like, be ready for that.
I think he even says something about that to the Force priestesses. He's like, I've faced my fears and my anger. Like, I did that a long time ago. And
right.
They kind of laugh at him like, oh, silly little green man, go do it again.
As if it's something you can do once and never have to worry about again.
Right. And then the moral of that episode, or like what the way he defeats his darkness, is by literally absorbing it, like accepting that it is a part of him and it's a part of everyone, even the Jedi. The Jedi aren't the absence of the dark. It's the choice to continue going back to the light. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Sith are kind of rejecting the light altogether and fully embracing the dark and only the dark.
They're pigs in mud. Yeah. They're like, we love it. We're rolling in it.
I love it in the dark. And that leads to just, suffering, as Yoda said, but not just for them, but for everyone around them as well. Mm-hmm. And that's why the Sith are the bad guys.
Yeah.
But I do think that, yes, they're showing the Jedi to be fallible. My hope is that after episode 7, that's kind of the next big heartbreak, where we see that they tried. They failed, but they did try. And, like, I think that Osha is probably going to hear a twisted version of the truth and what happened, but it probably won't be the truth
Right.
that
Like
Kymir
you
tells
said,
her.
we might have a situation that we had in Last Jedi where we get Luke's first version, which is stretched and not.
It's a half truth.
It's a half truth, and then we get
Ben's version,
and then we get Ben's version, and
which is the truth from his point of view. I believe it's what he believes, but it's also like a stretch, I guess.
Yeah, it's not.
It's the dark version of the truth.
It's not the full picture.
Yes,
and then we get the full picture. So seeing those 3 different scenes, and then by the end of the movie, you can be like, oh, okay, I know why they showed us that now. It's like that.
But yeah, I mean, I do hope that we still see, yes, the Jedi are good. They are forces of light, but sometimes they struggle, like every person does.
They're good because they have to work at it.
Mm-hmm.
The Sith are taking the easy road. You know, they just go full in dark side. They don't have to worry about confronting themselves ever.
That's exactly what Obi-Wan tells Darth Maul in the Clone Wars, that he's never going to go down the dark side, and that's the coward's way, and it's the easy way. But being a Jedi, going to the light, takes work every single day.
Takes the light side to get me up every morning before it's too hot to walk Hilo.
That's the darkest I am all day. I'm like, no, don't want to, no. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.